Welcome to another episode of PPL Pod. So I want you to just picture the Time 100 Most Influential list back in 2015.
Oh, that was a wild year for pop culture.
Right. So you've got Barack Obama, Beyonce, the Pope is on there.
Naturally.
Naturally, yeah. But sitting in second place, like right behind Vladimir Putin, is a 24-year-old South Korean rapper named CL.
Which is just, it's one of those cultural flashpoints that totally forces you to reevaluate how global influence actually works, you know?
Yeah,
Because you look at that leaderboard of like geopolitical heavyweights and these established Western titans, and sitting near the very top is an artist who, at that specific moment in time, had not even released a full solo studio album.
Which is insane. And look, if you follow K-pop, you probably already know CL is a fierce frontman of 2NE1. But what often gets lost, I think, in the nostalgia of that second-generation K-pop era is how she completely rewrote the psychological blueprint for what a female idol was, like, allowed to be.
Completely. She took this highly regulated rulebook of the Korean music industry and fundamentally dismantled it.
Yeah, she really did. And that's what this deep dive is all about today. We're unpacking her journey.
Because to understand the origins of K-pop's massive crossover into the Western mainstream today, you really have to look at the woman who acted as its unapologetic vanguard.
Yeah.
She was testing the boundaries of the global market years before the infrastructure for Korean artists abroad had, truly been established.
Right. So that sets up the core mystery for us to explore in this deep dive, which is, like, how does a young artist from Seoul managed to beat out global politicians and Western pop culture icons in a worldwide poll years before the true Western K-pop explosion even happens?
Well, the answer actually requires us to look outside of South Korea. Her story does not begin inside like a traditional K-pop trainee facility.
Right.
It begins with a super nomadic, highly international upbringing. So she was born in Seoul in 1991, but her early childhood was spent constantly moving across borders.
Yeah, the sources mentioned she lived in Paris, Tsukuba, and Tokyo, right?
Exactly. And we're not just talking about a kid tagging along on family vacations. The sources highlight that when she was only 13 years old, she moved to Paris to study for 2 years, entirely alone.
Wait, alone? Like 13?
13.
Yeah.
Just by herself in Paris.
I mean, most people that age are struggling to navigate middle school social dynamics, right? And she is independently navigating the Paris metro system and adapting to a foreign culture without her parents. That's wild.
It really is. And that intense early independence is basically the foundation of her entire worldview. She was forced to build this inner locus of control very early on. She actually later reflected on that period, saying, culturally, I'm not 100% Korean. I'm very mixed and very open.
Yeah, and that open, autonomous mindset is a super vital context for what happens next.
Oh, absolutely. Because when she decided to audition for YG Entertainment at age 15, she totally bypassed the standard highly manicured scouting channels.
She didn't go to an open call or anything?
No, she literally just showed up at the building with a demo tape and waited.
Just waited outside.
Yeah, just waited to hand it over.
See, it's almost like she was functioning as a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Like she absorbed all these global frequencies, the avant-garde sensibilities of Paris, the cultural trends of Tokyo, her own Korean heritage, and she basically used the corporate K-pop idol vehicle to smuggle in a deeply authentic global counterculture.
That's a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Like she brought the world to the K-pop factory rather than letting the factory mold her into its standard product.
Exactly. And that independent mindset is precisely what made her 2009 debut so disruptive to the whole ecosystem. To understand the impact, you kind of have to look at the mechanics of the traditional Korean music scene back then.
Right, which was very different from today.
Very different. Female groups were largely defined by a specific type of high-gloss uniformity. The concepts were typically centered around innocence, approachability, or these highly synchronized, pristine pop routines.
Right. And then 2NE1 arrives and just shatters that mold completely. I mean, they debuted in 2009 with CL as the leader and main rapper, and the industry response was, well, seismic.
Oh, totally seismic.
They released tracks like Fire and I Don't Care. And they didn't just perform well on the charts. They actually won Song of the Year at the Mnet Asian Music Awards in the exact same year they debuted.
Which is practically unheard of for a rookie group to bypass the usual years of, paying dues and building a slow fandom to take the top prize. It's incredibly rare.
Yeah. I remember The Guardian captured her specific energy by describing her as a bold and brash personality in a world of high-gloss uniformity.
Right, because she was operating on a completely different wavelength. Her foundational influences were so different from her peers. I mean, she worked closely with YG's in-house producer, Teddy Park, but she was drawing inspiration from artists like Madonna and Lauryn Hill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in fact, the very first album she ever received from her father was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Okay, but wait. Here's where I kind of have to push back on this narrative of, like, total autonomy.
Okay, lay it on me.
Because YG Entertainment is infamous for micromanaging everything.
Right.
From their artists' diets to their hairstyles to their public statements. Are we really supposed to believe a 15-year-old just waltzed in and dictated her own persona?
That's a fair question.
Like, wasn't she just a very well-cast actor playing the rebel role that a massive corporation engineered because they realized, hey, there's a missing archetype in the market?
Right, and that is definitely the natural assumption when you look at the whole K-pop machinery, but the evidence actually points to something much more organic.
Really?
Yeah. While YG Entertainment absolutely provided the financial backing and, the massive production muscle, the attitude CL brought could not just be manufactured in a boardroom. You can't simply hand a script to a teenager and tell them to exude authentic Atlanta hip-hop inspired swagger.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. You either have that or you don't.
Exactly. And furthermore, as her career evolved, her fingerprints were all over the actual music. For 2NE1's final studio album, Crush, she wrote the lyrics and co-composed the music for multiple tracks.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize she was composing that early on.
She was. And she also penned her massive solo releases, including The Baddest Female and MTBD.
So she really had to carve out that baddest female lane herself, basically because the blueprint simply did not exist for women in the industry at that time.
Right. It just wasn't there until she built it.
And once she proved that model worked in Korea, she set her sights on arguably the most notoriously difficult market in the world, which is the United States.
Yeah, and that shift, the 2014 to 2018 era, marks a highly strategic, ambitious expansion for her. Cracking the American music market has historically been an overwhelming challenge for Asian artists.
Oh, for sure. It's brutal.
It was often viewed as this impenetrable fortress where international acts were treated as novelties rather than serious contenders. So to bridge that gap, she partnered with Scooter Braun.
Right, who was managing some of the biggest Western pop stars on the planet at the time.
Exactly.
And she also started really integrating herself into the Western music scene through, like, aggressive collaboration. She worked with Diplo on that trad-heavy track, Dr. Pepper.
Such a huge track.
Yeah, and she featured on Size Global's Single Daddy. But the cultural milestone that truly stands out to me from the sources is her 2016 English language single, Lifted.
Oh, Lifted is a masterclass in cultural translation. She didn't just release a generic pop song tailored for American radio. She actually sampled the legendary Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, specifically their 1993 classic Method Man.
Right.
And Method Man himself appears in the music video, dancing alongside her. Which, honestly, that is not just a fun cameo.
Not at all.
In the world of hip-hop, a genre that has historically, gatekept against manufactured pop acts, getting the physical presence and the blessing of Wu-Tang royalty is the ultimate stamp of authenticity.
It totally is. It signaled to the Western audience that she was a legitimate artist, not just some industry plant. And the commercial mechanics reflected that validation, too. Lifted made her the first female South Korean solo artist to ever place on the Billboard Hot 100 chart.
Wow, first ever.
First ever. And that same year, she booked a solo concert at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City and completely sold it out. She became the first K-pop female artist to hold a solo concert in the city, which proved that a live touring market for Korean soloists actually existed in America.
It makes me think if groups like BTS and Blackpink are driving on a paved global K-pop highway today, CL was out there in 2015 and 2016 with a machete, basically clearing the jungle.
I love that visual. That's exactly what she was doing.
Like, she was charting on Billboard and selling out iconic New York venues before there was any built-in mainstream Western infrastructure to support it.
And her momentum just continued to build toward, peak cultural diplomacy. By 2018, she was selected to perform at the Winter Olympics closing ceremony in Pyeongchang.
Oh, I remember watching that.
Yeah. She delivered these huge renditions of The Baddest Female and the 2NE1 anthem, I Am the Best, to a massive global television audience. And at that event, she met both South Korean President Moon Jae-in and Ivanka Trump. She was essentially functioning as a global ambassador for Korean culture.
But, and this is where the story gets kind of tense, music and diplomacy were really only part of the equation, because while she was breaking all this ground globally, the mechanics behind the scenes at her label were basically grinding to a halt.
Yeah, things were stalling out.
The sheer output of music was not matching her creative ambition, which led to a massive friction point.
Because the K-pop industry relies on a relentless cycle of releases to maintain relevance, you know? So when an artist's vision matures beyond the label's standard formula, tension is inevitable. And in late 2019, she took arguably the most significant creative risk of her life. She chose not to renew her contract with YG Entertainment.
Oh.
She walked away from the most powerful hit-making machine in South Korea to become fully independent.
Which is terrifying. Because the label controls everything, the distribution networks, the media access, the corporate safety net. Leaving all of that behind is huge.
Huge, but almost immediately after leaving, she released a digital EP called In the Name of Love, which consisted of tracks she had written over the years but was previously unable to release.
Ah, so she had a vault of material just waiting.
Exactly. Independence unlocked a completely new layer of nuance and vulnerability for her. Without that corporate oversight, she was no longer obligated to maintain this singular, impenetrable persona all the time.
Right.
And we saw this evolution fully realized with her debut studio album, Alpha. Interestingly, Alpha was initially slated for a late 2020 release, but she deliberately pushed it back to 2021.
Why did she push it back?
The reasoning is pretty telling. She basically developed new ideas during the process and wanted absolute perfection. When you operate independently, you actually possess the luxury of dictating your own timeline.
Yeah, no one is rushing you to meet a Q4 earnings target.
Exactly.
And you can really hear the profound impact of that creative control in the emotional depth of the music. Like on her 30th birthday in February 2021, she released Wish You Were Here.
Oh, that song.
It is a devastating, highly reflective tribute to her mother, who had tragically passed away from a heart attack just days before.
Yeah, it completely strips away the armor. Releasing something that raw requires a level of autonomy that the traditional idol system rarely, if ever, permits.
Which kind of introduces a fascinating contradiction for us to think about in this deep dive. Because she is universally known as the untouchable, hype-driven K-pop queen, the ultimate baddest female.
Right.
Yet, she deliberately walked away from that highly lucrative archetype to independently release deeply personal, sorrowful projects. Does stepping away from the hit-making factory mark her ultimate rejection of the idol label entirely?
I think it actually forces us to redefine what an idol can be. There's a K-pop expert at Berklee College of Music, Haejo Kim, who noted that CL expanded the image of the female K-pop idol. She didn't reject her past. She just evolved past its limitations.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, by leaving the corporate machine, she demonstrated that an artist's identity does not have to be permanently dictated by a board of directors. She showed the industry what an idol becomes when they take total ownership of their own narrative.
But music was really only half the equation for total autonomy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To truly break away from the idol machine and sustain her cultural leverage, she needed influence outside of the recording studio, and she found it in the high-stakes world of global fashion.
Oh, her integration into the fashion industry operates on the exact same monumental scale as her music career. In 2021, she made history once again. She and Blackpink's Rosé became the first female K-pop artist to ever attend the Met Gala.
That's a massive deal.
Huge. And CL utilized that massively scrutinized red carpet to make a very distinct cultural statement. She wore this custom denim dress by Alexander Wang that was structurally inspired by the traditional Korean hanbok.
Oh, blending American denim with a Korean historical silhouette on literally the biggest fashion stage in the world. That's so smart.
It was brilliant, but her involvement in fashion runs much deeper than just, attending galas. She became a foundational muse for major designers long before it was standard practice for K-pop idols to do that.
Right, because now every idol has a luxury brand deal.
Exactly. But around 2013, European luxury houses were just realizing the Asian consumer market was expanding rapidly, and they needed a conduit. They didn't just want a famous face, they wanted an artist with an avant-garde spirit who basically spoke the language of rebellion.
And that's CL.
That's CL. Jeremy Scott at Moschino publicly declared her his muse, calling her one of the fiercest girls out of Seoul. Jean-Paul Gaultier went as far as airlifting his haute couture collection to Korea specifically for a photo shoot with her.
Airlifting haute couture.
Yeah. She also became the first Korean brand ambassador for Beyoncé's Ivy Park athleisure line.
which is incredible. And the commercial power she wielded in this space was just staggering. Like, the sources mention that when she became the face of Maybelline New York, her endorsement of their Magnum Volume Express mascara caused sales to triple compared to the previous year.
Triple, just from her face being on it.
Yeah. The industry literally coined it the CL mascara effect. People didn't just want to listen to her music, they fundamentally wanted to emulate her aesthetic.
And that influence is only compounded over time, too. In 2024, she joined the expert committee for the prestigious LVMH Grand Prize in Fashion.
Wait, really? The LVMH committee?
Yes, she is sitting alongside industry titans like Naomi Campbell, evaluating the next generation of global design talent.
See, that transition from muse to actual tastemaker is incredible. She sits on LVMH committees and dictates global trends, despite not releasing music at the relentless, exhaustive volume of her traditional K-pop peers. It makes you wonder how her cultural footprint continues to expand, even when the musical output slows down.
It's basically because she treats fashion and music as symbiotic forms of expression rather than just separate business ventures. She explained her philosophy once by saying, "I love to perform and express myself to inspire people. That's why fashion is a huge inspiration to me." The traditional K-pop cycle relies on constant noise to maintain relevance, right?
Right. Releasing 3 EPs a year, constant content.
Exactly. But CL relies on calculated presence.
And that curated presence has provided a blueprint for an entire generation of performers. You look at the artists who cite her as a direct influence today. You got G-Idol's Soyeon, Blackpink's Lisa, aespa's Giselle, even Western artists like Lorde. And my favorite detail, Chloe Kim, the Olympic gold medalist snowboarder, actually relies on CL's music to get into the zone right before she drops into the halfpipe.
That is amazing. And when you lay out all of these intersecting achievements, right, the independent upbringing in Paris, the disruption of the 2009 Idol uniform, the solo infiltration of the Billboard charts, the Wu-Tang cosign, the move to complete independence, and now her ascension to the LVMH committee.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. And that 2015 Time 100 poll suddenly snaps perfectly into focus.
It totally does. She didn't land in second place beating out global politicians just because she had an organized fan base clicking a button on a website.
No, she earned that position because she represented a fundamental paradigm shift. She proved to the world that Asian women in global pop culture could be fierce, unapologetic, and entirely self-determined. She broke the mold of the compliant, manufactured pop star.
And even with 2NE1 officially reforming in 2024 for new activities, her legacy as an autonomous force of nature is already cemented. The corporate machine did not build her. The machine needed her.
Well said.
Which leaves you, the listener, with a complex dynamic to consider. The K-pop industry is notoriously grueling. It's famous for demanding perfection and enforcing a very short shelf life for its stars. Contracts expire, new younger groups are constantly debuting, and the cycle just ruthlessly moves on.
It really does.
But CL proves that there is a vibrant, powerful, and creatively fulfilling life after the traditional idol machine. When you look at the biggest pop stars in the world right now, especially those still operating within highly controlled, restrictive industry systems, what does her career blueprint mean for their futures when their contracts finally run out? She didn't just clear the jungle for them to succeed in the present. She really engineered the roadmap for their independence in the future.
A roadmap built entirely on unyielding authenticity and unapologetic cool.
Thanks for listening to P-Bill Up Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.